Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our session on the Google Currents migration to Spaces in Google Chat. My name is Lauren, and I'm the content manager for the Google Workspace community. Joining us today are Jackson, Chelsea, and Christina from the Google Workspace team, and they will be taking us through the session content today and answering your questions. Questions are encouraged, so please feel free to add those into the YouTube chat box, and we'll be sure to get to them in the chat or at the end of the presentation. There are several pre-submitted questions from the registration form, so we'll be going through those first, just as a heads up. And for any questions that we don't get to live, we will be answering them in a recap post, which will be published in the Workspace community. And you can find a link to that in the YouTube description. I think it's the first link there. So you can find that along with some other resources related to the content in the session today. All right, so with that, I will hand it over to Jackson to take us through the session content. Yeah, let us know where you're joining us from, any questions, add that into the chat, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, so hi everybody. My name is Jackson Shea. I am the PM on the Google Chat team. Thank you for taking the time to join us in this webinar. I know that over the last few weeks, we've sent out a lot of documents to all of you. And if you haven't read all of them, that's fine. I think that's what this webinar is for. We will first go over some of the key points on those documents that we sent out. And secondly, again, thank you for submitting those questions prior to this webinar. I had a time to look over all of them, and I've tried to address most of them in this webinar. Before I get started, there is one ground rule, which is that a lot of you that have joined, some of them have signed NDAs, some of them have not. So there are some information that I cannot share with everybody, and also please, if you are in that NDA pool, just be cognizant that when you comment, just be careful that some of our people have joined are not. So that's just the main ground rule. And with that, we'll get started. And the first thing I'd like to cover over is just a timeline. So by now, I think all of you have received your MSA with more detailed information on the timeline when your migration date will occur. And so the next thing is on the March 15th, on the product itself, on Currents product, you will start seeing these banners show up that tells you that if you have opted in, what is your migration date? When is that going to happen? If you have not opted in, then it will just tell you when is this product shutting down. And March 31st, this is when we start the creation of new communities will be disabled. So as of March 31st, you will no longer be able to create any new communities in Currents. March 31st is also the final opt-out day. So if you have already opted in and you would like to opt out, March 31st is that final date. On the actual day of migration, again, everybody has probably some different dates. What will happen is that once the migration begins, access to Currents will be disabled. So I will go over that in another slide in more detail. The data that you have will still be accessible through Takeout. And then the migration time will take probably only a few hours, but up to 40 hours for some large customers. At the end of Q1, you will also be able to use Takeout with this new format to get JSON snippets, because part of that Takeout, you will not get post data. You will get a lot of URLs in there. So we're working on, by the end of Q1, to give you this JSON format. And then on July 5th, that's when we start to wind down on Currents. And so you will not have, anybody will have access to Currents. So it will be completely disabled. But again, you can still access your data through Takeout. And then on August 8th, that's when we start deleting of all the Currents data. So that's the deadline for the Currents Takeout. So these are just some of the key dates that you should be aware of as we go through this process of migration. So what will not be migrated? So these are some of the key things where shared communities with multiple owners from different domains will not be migrated. So this is something that you can take action, where if there are communities that have shared domains, you can start to remove some of those owners and then make them qualify for migration. Posts, comments, likes outside of communities will not be migrated. So things that you posted to your followers, those will not be migrated. Similarly, posts, comments, and likes prior to July of 2020 will also not be migrated. Communities with no members will not be migrated. You'll be surprised that we have a lot of these communities with just no members in them. Posts that were held for review in post review config or deemed abusive will also not be migrated. Going forward, introduction to Google Chat. So there's been a lot of confusion around spaces, whether it's a product, where do we access it. So right now, what we're trying to aim for is that Spaces will become more of a feature that's integrated with Google Chat. Now, you can still access Spaces in both Gmail as well as Google Chat, but going forward, we will start moving more and more towards this Google Chat. So, if you haven't already, if you go to chat.google.com, that's where you will find Google Chat, and that's where a lot of your Spaces, once it's migrated, will appear. Your organization must enable uh, the chat app in the admin console for you to get access to that. Important point is that Google Chat is a messaging collaboration tool. It is not a social network, so you will not find things like newsfeed or follow. It's primarily a collaboration tool that has like a live messaging UI with it. It is supported on both web, iOS, and Android. So, what are some of the key differences between currents and spaces? One is that communities will become spaces. When you join a community, you can then join a space. Posting in the community will become messaging in a space. Comments and liking a post, it's converted to replying a thread or reacting with emojis. Data analytics, this is something that we've heard a lot about, and it's something that we're currently evaluating. We're collecting a lot of use cases from our customers right now. But right now, there is no announcement whether or not that's coming or not. Admin reports is another one of those areas that we're currently evaluating, and we're talking to many customers to try to understand what is the use case that we're trying to fill. Social newsfeed will not be available. So again, I want to keep on emphasizing this that Google Chat and Spaces within Google Chat is primarily a collaboration messaging tool. So we have no plans to develop something like a social network feed. So on a migration date, what will occur? So this is a little bit repeat of what I mentioned about. So on the day of migration will start automatically on your migration date. You do not have to do anything. It will just start automatically. Current access will be disabled for your organization. So when you try to log in, you'll get something, what you see on the right, which is your admin has disabled this. You have no access to currents. Your communities will start appearing in Spaces in Google Chat. Typically, the migration will only take a few hours, but it may take up to 48 hours for some large customers. Data can still be accessed using Takeout. So post-migration, once the migration is done, admins can go into the admin console and find a migration report. And July 5th, no access to currents for everybody. Data can still be accessed again through Takeout until August 8th. So takeout, what kind of takeouts are available? So there are three primary takeouts. You can take out for individual users. So this is where admins have to impersonate a user that they want, and then they can take out data, and you can also filter by the actual product. So you can actually filter for user A, filter by currents, and take out the user data. And this is really suitable for organization with small amounts of users. Now, the second one is entire domain takeout. So this is for large corporations where you have a lot of users. You can pull and take out all the data, export it, and then it's a large data set. But then you can slice and dice and filter it as you want. And then for Enterprise Plus customers, we offer groups and organizational unit takeout. So this is where you can enter something like Google Groups and say, I only want to take out and export data for the subset of users. And again, a lot of this data that you take out, the post content will not be in there because the post content that's in Takeout will only be in URL kind of format. They will just point to URLs. And so, again, at the end of Q1 is when we will offer the JSON snippets Takeout, and more information of that will come in the following days. And so one big question that I've received is around large communities. So the questions I've been receiving is that right now Spaces only support up to 8,000 members. What if you have more than 8,000 members? And so by the time we do migrate, we will have large spaces up to 25,000 members. So if you have spaces, if you have spaces with communities with members that's under 25K, all of the users will be migrated. Okay. And so the formal rule that we have is that communities with more than 25K of users that will be migrated. So communities with more than 25K, not all the users will be migrated. So if you have something over 25K, only the active users will be migrated first. And so how do we deem that they are active users? Well, users who have created posts, engaged with posts are what we deem active. And so they will be the ones that have been migrated first. And all inactive users, what we will do is send an email invite to these users where they can join the space. So they can, join all the way up until they hit that 25K limit. And I know that's a lot of words. So we prepared this slide to kind of highlight this. And so for large spaces, we have two examples here. For 25K members, and you have only 5 active users in this 24K members community. When you go to spaces, when it's migrated over, how many of these members will be migrated? Again, 24K members, only 5K are active. How many will be migrated? And the answer is all 24K because it's within that 25K limit that will be migrated over. Now, in the second example, we have 26K users. And so now that you're over the 25K member, what happens? And again, you only have 5 active users. So when you migrate them over, only 5K of those active users will actually be migrated. Now, the rest of the 21K other members will receive an email invite to join the space. And so, assuming all of them want to join, what happens is up to the 25, everybody will be able to join until they hit that 25K member. So 1K users will be left out in this scenario. So hopefully that helps kind of clarify the logic between when we have these large communities. Now, getting into some of the chat features. So again, thank you for sending in a lot of the questions prior to this webinar. A lot of the questions were around future spaces and chat features, and some of them are under NDA. And so I've been scrambling around for the last few days trying to get permission to share this. And so some of them we will share, others that we will not. I will try to provide a more high-level direction on just overall Google Chat and where we're going. So the first question that I got was around API. Can we have API access? So for all enterprise customers, you can today sign up to a preview program, and we will supply the URL down in the comments where you can actually sign up to a preview program. We will review it, and very probably within a week we will give you access to these APIs. So I think a lot of the questions were like, can we have an API to access list members or delete members? So these are all within the preview program. So again, we will provide the URL, and when you go to a preview program, if you're an enterprise customer, you can sign up, and we will try to expedite that to get you that access as soon as possible. Second, another question I got a lot was around announcement spaces. So this is where you can create a space where only the space manager can actually send messages, and where all other members can react to it. So this is something that will be available starting March. Some key points: you cannot change a space into announcement space. So unfortunately, you will have to create a new space if you want to create an announcement space. Only the space manager can post, and other members can react. So again, this is coming in March. We're really excited about this feature. Yeah. Other questions I've received, I am showing kind of what's in and what's out. So what's in, I mentioned Chat API, announcement spaces are coming. And then direction wise, we are always trying to make spaces larger. I cannot disclose like, what is the next milestone we're trying to hit, but then just so that I want everybody to know that Google Chat is one of those products that we're heavily investing in. So we're constantly trying to make improvements to this product. So larger spaces is coming. Um, Additional space management controls, improvement to admin space management, improve UI, better search functionality. So trying to find, and browse, other spaces. These are all things that we are working on. Improving the conversational creation. So what this means is like we launch things like emojis, and there are other things that many of them that you guys have mentioned, like questions that you sent in are things that I can only say that we are working on them. I cannot go any more specific than that, unfortunately. What are things that are out? So again, I keep on trying to highlight this, which is that we are Google Chat is at the end of the day a collaboration messaging tool. So a lot of the social features will unfortunately not be developed for Google Chat. Things like newsfeed, embedded spaces will review posts. These are things that are not on the roadmap. So hopefully that this is something that can clarify what's in and what is out. And with that, I kind of open it up. We can start looking through some of the questions that are on there. And again, I ask Christina and Chester to kind of join me. So, how do we do this, Laura, in terms of looking at some of the questions that are available?
Yep, we did get a lot of questions, and some of them you may have already addressed, but we will go ahead and get started and go through them. So, our first question is when will we be able to auto provision users to a space?
So there's potentially two parts to this question, and it kind of depends on what this person means. So one answer is that we do have the chat API available, as was discussed earlier in the presentation. So you can add users through the API, and that is definitely a good way to do that. In terms of directly adding users to a space, there are some exciting features planned around doing more automation here, but we're not able to comment on those at this time. So the best option, if you're talking about at scale, is using our APIs.
Awesome. Yep. And if there's any additional, if you can elaborate on your question, if that doesn't directly address it, Pablo, please feel free to add more context there into the chat. Okay. There are a couple comments around embedding into sites, and we have not heard when this will happen. So is there any information we can share on this?
Yeah, I just kind of went over. So unfortunately, this is not a feature that we are supporting. It is not on the roadmap, and unfortunately, there's no solution anytime soon for this.
Okay. Will new features be implemented to prevent each member from adding others to a space or promoting others to space managers? And it looks like there are some other people plus wanting this question around ensuring only space managers can add members.
Go ahead, Chelsea.
Yeah. So I believe that this is intended to be addressed as part of our space management admin control improvements that are on the roadmap. There are a sort of suite of features associated with this, and I believe this is in there.
Awesome. So when a new member is added, they do not receive a notification to enter the space. Is this a feature that can be provided?
I actually don't know. I thought that you actually get notified when you get added to a space. If not, that's something I would probably have to follow up on.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think it would be helpful for us to have a little more detail on this question. Generally, users should receive an invite if they're directly added to a space. And obviously, this space will appear for them and they'll start getting notifications. So this might be something specific to your workspace configuration.
Yeah. Also, after you add them to a space and you message them, and they don't respond, especially if you mention them, they will receive automatically an email to say somebody has messaged you in this space. So hopefully that can answer some of that question.
Sounds good. So we performed the takeout, but posts are downloaded with currents links, so they will be unusable once currents will be discontinued. What is the solution to save posts?
So Jackson mentioned this when we were discussing the timeline slide, but we are planning in Q1 to launch an improvement to our takeout. We're adding a JSON format that will include all of the post data. So this is coming at the end of Q1 and should address this concern.
Sounds good. Moving right along, when Google migrates a community from Currents to Spaces, will each member find a new space in the Spaces app with the same Currents members, the same name and posts after July 2020?
Yes. The only thing I would clarify here is that Spaces are part of chat, and so it'll technically be in the chat app. So I just want to make sure that no one's looking for an app that doesn't exist. And the other thing is we'll append when we do the migration currents in brackets to the beginning of the community name as the new space name. Obviously, the owner can change the name of the space. So if you don't like that, you can change it. But that's the only difference. So yeah, otherwise this is 100% correct.
So the only limitation is if you go beyond the 25K, like I explained.
Yeah, so there are some caveats that we cover in our feature mapping doc that talk about specific content that won't be migrated, specific types of users that can't be migrated, specifically users that don't have chat enabled if they're external. So there are definitely some caveats, but at a high level for 99.9% of cases, this is true.
Sounds good. So that you may have covered this in the presentation, but will chat gain any features that were formerly currents only?
There's no specific plan to add currents features to chat or spaces. But as Jackson talked about, we are going to be investing a lot more in spaces and have been investing a lot more in spaces. So you'll begin to see certain features that might have been familiar to you from currents, like announcements in spaces. And there are use cases where we're going to be building more features that seem familiar to people who came from currents. That said, as Jackson has said a few times in the presentation, chat and spaces are not currents. They are different products. So there are limitations to what we can do here.
Makes sense. Okay, will we be able to add a dynamic group to a space? Currently, this does not work.
Unfortunately, go ahead.
Yeah. This is something that we're definitely looking at. We don't have a firm date for when this would be available.
Sounds good. I think a follow-up on this as well is, will we be able to add an external group to a space?
I think the same question comes in where groups are not currently supported in spaces.
Well, I mean, if the question is about adding individual members,
yes,
that's outside of your domain, that is supported.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
That's a good clarification.
Will there be a way to organize spaces in the left column?
I can take this a little bit. I mean, I have to get more clarity on what organized spaces mean. There is a functionality of pinning. You can pin spaces so that they're on the top, and those are probably the most important ones. We don't have, and you can also rename it where if they're within the pins and you want to name it, it becomes alphabetical for those pin spaces. Outside of that, there are some requests that we heard that is not currently scheduled yet. So
makes sense. Okay. One here from Heidi. Are there any anticipated updates to notification options in Spaces?
Yes. So there's a lot of, you will get, for each space, you have 3 notification settings. You can notify all. That means that anything that appears, you'll get a notification. There's notification less, which means that you will only get notified when somebody mentions you, or it's a thread that you have followed. And there's also notification off for that space so that you don't get constant notification. You still get the bolding and bumping to let you aware that there have been updates to that space, but you won't get a notification if it's notified or off. And so there's 3 settings that you have for, and that it's something that you can apply to each individual space.
We run a community of 300 members, and we booked the migration to Spaces in 2022, but haven't received the expected date from Google yet. Will we receive any communication, and how many days in advance?
So we sent an announcement to all members of the Currents community with information about their opt-in and their migration date on February 7th. So you should have received it. The one thing that I know does create confusion for some customers is that it's only sent to one email address, which is the super admin of your domain. So if you don't know who that is, I would recommend reaching out to Workspace support. And worst case scenario, they can follow up with us on the ticket to confirm your migration date.
Great. Okay, I think there's a question around the space manager. Will the moderator be included among the new features that will be implemented? I believe we may have already addressed this, but around space managers.
I guess when they say will moderator, I'm assuming this is around the announcement space that they're trying to create. Will there be new features that will be implemented? The short answer is yes. I don't know what specific features you're referring to, but again, announcement spaces is coming very soon in March. So you will have available to that to test out, to play with. So that's coming.
And I would recommend following the Workspace updates blog if you don't already, just to make sure you get notified when that is available. And often those blogs will also have more information about the detailed features that are available in the launch.
Sounds good. And just as a reminder, if you're joining us late or missed it, we will be providing a recap post in the Workspace community after this event. So we'll be collecting all of your questions and providing the resources that we're mentioning on the call as well into that post, so you can refer back to it at your convenience. Okay. Our next question is, if we upgrade to Google Enterprise Plus before the migration date, can we choose what we want to take out?
I believe that this is referring to the new advanced domain-wide takeout feature that launched recently. And just for context for everyone else, this is a new feature of domain-wide takeout, which allows you to filter to a specific group and perform a domain-wide takeout, but either do it just for a user or just for a group. And this is really great because then you don't have to do takeout on your whole domain, every single user. You can, for instance, in this case, create a group of Currents users and then do an export just for them. So it is a really cool feature. We're very excited to see what the Takeout team has been doing here, and they have a lot more development coming in the future, so we're looking forward to that. The caveat is that this feature is only available to Enterprise Plus customers. And yes, so if you upgrade to Enterprise Plus, you can use Takeout. That is something that should be available to you. The one caveat I'll add is that rollout has been a little slow. So if you are upgrading to Enterprise Plus specifically to get this feature, I would definitely recommend filing a ticket with support just to make sure that feature gets enabled for you quickly.
Makes sense. Okay. Just making sure we're not addressing any duplicate questions here, but Short and sweet question here is a hyperlink, which I believe they mean, are we able to add a hyperlink within a chat space?
Yeah, so short answer is I cannot disclose on specific features that are launching or not. However, this is one of the features that I previously said that is in the area of let me see, what is in the actual slides, I called it improved conversation creation. So I can only say it's part of that space, improved conversation creation. I cannot comment specifically whether or not hyperlink is coming and when it's coming. So.
All good. Okay, announcement spaces. Non-managers can only react with an emoji, or can they also comment and reply?
For now, we only support reactions, so emojis. And there is a limit on how many emojis. I can't remember exactly how much. I think it's like 200. Is it 50 or 200, like limited amount of unique emojis that can appear for reactions. However, there's no limits in terms of how many people use existing emojis that appear. So you can have, like 500 pluses on one emoji, but amount of unique emojis that appear are limited.
And apologies for misinterpreting. So the hyperlink is referring to, or it may be two questions here, is can you hyperlink to a specific post within the chat space, I believe.
And its answer is the same. Whether or not you can actually create a hyperlink in a message is something that I cannot disclose. If the question is whether or not we are migrating hyperlinks from currents, I believe the answer is yes, but it will not be a hyperlink. The links will appear, but it will not be in a hyperlink format at time of migration, I believe. I don't
To
know,
be clear,
Chelsea.
Jackson, I
Yeah.
think what this person means is in currents, the way posts exist is they have unique URLs. So if you want to share a post that you've made, you can do that. So I think they're asking if we're going to have the ability to share a link that would directly link you into a specific message or thread.
I believe that's something that is being worked on. I don't know when the launch date of that is.
Yeah, it's on the roadmap, but we do not have that date.
Got it. Okay. Yes. Thank you for that clarification. There's one that I can take. So the same link that you're using to watch this live is what you can use to watch the recording afterwards. So as soon as we close out today, it'll be available for you to rewatch at your own convenience. We will also be, as I said, posting this in the workspace community. So if you're not yet a member there, definitely encourage you to check that out. And that's where you can stay up to date on this session in particular and future sessions and updates. Okay. Will there be an option to import messages from Slack to make the migration to chat easier and increase chat adoption?
I can answer this, Jackson, if you don't.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is something that is in our sites long term. We don't have a launch date for this at this time.
Okay. When will we be able to direct call with Google Chat, or is this something that's on the roadmap?
Direct call.
Do you mean dial a number from chat? Is that the question, or is that start a video meeting, or I think it would be helpful to get some clarity on exactly what they mean.
Yeah, Bob, if you're able to provide any additional clarification there, we can try to get back to you on that one.
You can start a Google Meet directly in chat if that helps.
Is selecting what communities that will be migrated to Spaces still off the table, or is it all or nothing at this point?
Yeah, at this point it is all or nothing.
Okay.
And just one more thing I'll add, if you haven't seen our announcements from our MSA, we did make available a community report to customers. So you can write in a ticket to support and request a community report, which can give you information about all of your communities, including whether they will be migrated based on things like, are they active? I know that there have been a lot of questions in that area.
Thanks for that clarification. Okay, so can Google provide a presentation for organizations to adopt chat in Spaces, or does something like this already exist?
It probably already exists, and I think this is something we can follow up and share the link either in the YouTube description or as the follow-up, the post. What do we call it? The post.
The recap?
The recap,
Yep.
Sorry, yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, the one other thing I'll say is that we did provide some information specifically on how to migrate from currents to Spaces, including a user guide for this. And we have the links in the presentation for the end user guide, which includes a lot of information.
Great. Will similar reporting be available in the admin console for currents also be available for Spaces?
I kind of touched on this, which is this is something that is being evaluated right now, and we are collecting some of that data, but no timetable in terms of when that will be available.
That's good. Are we going to be able to share files from and to other apps on mobile without using Drive or Direct Share?
I would say it depends on the file type. So things like photos and videos that you take with your phone are shareable through the chat app.
Okay. I think we've already talked a little bit about adding groups to Spaces, but I think this is talking more about it as it stands today. So since chat doesn't support groups, what will happen?
So in the case that your currents community has a group in it, we will directly add members of the group into the space based on their activity. There's a little bit more detail about this in our feature mapping article under large spaces, but essentially all active users will be added to the space and the remaining users will be invited. So we'll essentially unfurl the users in the group and directly add them to the space.
Cool. We use currents communities as an announcement space, so no posting rights for members. Will these currents communities be migrated as an announcement space?
No, we will not support announcement spaces as part of the migration. If you would like to explore announcement spaces when they launch, I would definitely recommend creating an announcement space and experimenting with that for your organization.
I think this is a fast follow to that around, is there a possibility to have a space with view-only rights? So would that be an announcement space in the new?
Yeah, that would be an announcement space. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Can we still opt into migration?
No, the migration opt-in period closed on December 31st, 2022. We are now in the stages of finalizing our migration, and unfortunately, we're not able to grant exceptions at this point in time.
For large domains, Google Takeout as a currents backup becomes infeasible as it cannot select currents as the only product. Are there any alternatives for admins who wants to back up currents?
So there's a few options here. One is to impersonate users and use user takeout because that does allow product filtering. Another is, as I discussed earlier, there is a new feature called domain-wide takeout. So you could add the users that are specific to that group and use domain-wide takeout to export the data and then just preserve the currents data. This is just a limitation of takeout at this point in time, but those are your best options.
Makes sense. A few questions around tagging. So is there any ability to add tags to help organize conversations and information?
We do not support tags in the migration. Jackson, I don't know if you have any comment about the future of features like tagging in spaces.
I would say no comment for now, unfortunately.
Are there any plans to include scheduled send messages in chat or spaces?
Unfortunately, I cannot comment on that as well. But we heard this request a lot, so just to let you know.
All right. Okay. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Could you reopen the possibility to create a new doc, sheet, or slide directly from a space?
Create a doc sheet directly from a space.
So you're not saying open a file from that's linked in the space. You want to like be able to create a new object.
I don't think that's supported.
Yeah.
I would just say that there are a lot of exciting things that we are planning for more integration across doc sheets, slides, Drive, but I can't comment on this specific feature.
Will there be things like APIs that will allow us to automatically send things to our chats?
Yep, the APIs are available now in the developer preview if you want to explore them, and they should be GAing later this year. So there are already apps that do things like this, so definitely available.
Awesome. This may have been covered, but how will the current automated migration work?
Jackson, is it possible for us to pull up the slide? I think it's summarized pretty well there, but the short version is on your migration date, we will shut down access to currents, and we will begin adding spaces, migrating the spaces over within about 24, but in very rare cases, 48 hours. You will begin to see communities in your space section in chat, and your users can continue using them as normal.
Great.
I'm getting a lot of I'm reading some of the comments, and they, a lot of people say they can't share photos. Like, I would say this is a supported feature, and so like update your app. It's supported on both Android and iOS as of today.
Something to consider is that there might be limitations based on your workspace domain about the kind of content that you're allowed to upload. So that would be one guess. I don't 100% know that, but that should be supported.
Good clarification. More around analytics, but I understand that analytics is still under investigation, but how can we trace how popular a certain post is, for example, in an announcement space?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no analytics that can help you with that. Unfortunately, you would just have to monitor that space yourself and see how many reactions or replies that they have. Oh, sorry. If it's announcement space, you would just have to look at the emojis and reactions that you get.
One option that might work depending on your organization is to use the API to query about the post, and then you could get that data into a dashboard if you wanted.
Good point. If I work with a partner, is there any way to check if my customer has opted into the migration?
All partners would have received an MSA email with the information about their customers, depending on which version they got. So you should have gotten versions of the MSA for every customer that you support. If you didn't get that, I would reach out to Workspace support to clarify. But they will likely only give that information to the customer themselves. but you should have a copy of the MSA email.
Makes sense. Can you convert an existing space to an announcement space, or can it only be created as a new space?
I covered this a little bit, which is that unfortunately you cannot convert. You would have to create a new space.
I believe currently you can only add 50 members at a time to spaces. Will this be increased or has it changed already?
I think that she's talking about adding members through the UI. I don't believe that there's been any change to that limit. However, as mentioned through previously about our APIs, you can add more users through the APIs. And obviously it'd be feasible to do more than 50 members through the API.
Got it. Okay, so the next question is how to turn on spaces for external guests.
This is in our June article for administrators on the that we announced, where we announced like the details of the migration at a high level. I think we should add this to the recap post. It's basically a setting in your chat settings.
Sounds good. It looks like it's a follow-up question to the one from Pablo here on checking if you've opted into the migration. Where is it in the admin console to check?
So it's not, the restriction currently does not allow the customer to view it in the admin console. So that's not a good solution at this point in time.
Will there be an option to delete or edit messages for personal accounts?
Yes. You can delete and edit.
Okay. I think there are several questions around native chat spaces on your desktop. So for Mac, for example, are you able to share anything about this, or if it's available or on the roadmap?
It is available. We don't promote it much enough because it's still under a lot of development. But yes, like if you were to Google Chat desktop app, you should be able to find it. Yes, that's the first thing that comes up. It's supported on desktop. The only caveat I would say is that it heavily relies on Chrome browser, so you must install the Chrome browser first before you can install the app.
Okay. Will chat eventually enable users to pin messages and to have threaded responses?
Threaded responses are available now.
I believe pin messages, or if not, it's on the roadmap.
Yeah, pin messages are not yet available, but it is on the roadmap.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Just making sure we're getting to all of your questions. Apologies if we've already addressed this one, but are there any space manager capabilities that you're able to speak to today, especially those targeted in the near term?
I'm trying to be like, I don't actually know what is available today, and I don't know how much I can share in terms of what's coming. Some of the basic features like being able to manage your members, being able to give access and space manager capabilities to others is either available or is coming soon. Other than that, there are other features that will give you more flexibility. Again, this is part of the the section that we have in terms of overall roadmap, that we have a dedicated team looking at this. So that's the most I can comment on that, unfortunately.
And then are we going to be able to share files from into other apps in mobile without saving to Drive first? And potentially also expanding on this question, it looks like there were a few others around uploading files without having to add it to a Drive first.
So again, like photos and videos from your phone are supported today. So that's why I was a little surprised to hear that it's not working. I think that's something that we can follow up, or definitely update your app. Other than that, right now you have to use Google Drive. Are there any additional file type that we're supporting in the future? The answer is yes, but I cannot go into specifics other than that.
Got it. So Threaded is available. How do I enable it?
How do you enable that? So I want to make sure I clarify what threaded means. So I have that. So can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so in here, whenever you right click on a message, you have the option to reply. And when you do, you get this little this additional threaded kind of link that comes up. And when users see that and they click it, it opens up another panel on the right. That's where the thread appears. So,
One thing
yeah.
that might be confusing for some users is it's done on space creation. So when you create the space, you choose to use a threaded or unthreaded space. I believe now we actually default all spaces to be threaded spaces. So if you aren't seeing that right now, maybe that's just something you haven't created a new space for. But that's why that is set up that way.
That's a good clarification. Yes. Like if you are to create a new space today, by default, it's a threaded supported space.
I think we have time for just a few more questions. So thanks everyone for sticking with us. Thank you, Jackson and Chelsea, for the rapid fire here. So one question is, I believe it's asking, are you able to follow specific people within a chat space? Yes or no?
Yeah, unfortunately, no.
Will admins be able to grant space managers from the admin console?
Yes, in the long-term plan for some of the admin controls that Jackson mentioned.
Does it work on mobile?
Yes.
Threads. Okay. I think there's a clarification question around sharing files on Google Chat. So I just checked all the settings, the domain console and all the necessary permissions are there, but we cannot share files on Google Chat.
I would open a ticket with workspace support. It sounds like maybe there's a bug or something that we're not going to be able to troubleshoot on a
yeah. Yeah, but again, you can support links from Google Drive. You can also support photos and videos uploaded directly from your phone. That's what's support today, just for the record.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm not sure if this is exactly a question, but it poses a question for me in that if there is an existing space that is not already using threaded conversations, can you convert that into a topic based into a threaded space?
So you cannot do that today, unfortunately. Just to kind of set the tone that we are heavily investing in threaded spaces going forward. So try to create, if you are to create a new space, use a threaded instead of the topic base.
And we've actually announced that we will be moving forward with threaded spaces and eventually converting these spaces over.
Yes.
Okay. Makes sense. Since embedded sites is not supported, do you have any recommendations on how to move forward with this? There are a few people who are asking about this.
I would just say once hyperlinking to that space is available, I think that's the closest thing that you can use on your sites to say, here's a link to the actual space. So.
Yep. Will we have the option to search for space members if a member exists? In large spaces, this is difficult. Also, sorting of members is not available.
So this is some area that we know that we are addressing. So it will be coming.
All right. I think we're still just getting a few more questions. Thank you, everyone. Is there any estimated timing for the conversion of topic spaces to threaded spaces?
So we are announcing a blog on this specific topic probably within the next few weeks. And so go to the Workspace blog and you'll have more updates on that.
Will we be able to update a space to allow external folks to join after it has been created?
Yes.
Yeah, you can enable external users afterwards.
Is it possible to create subspaces?
No.
I think this goes into the like foldering kind of question. I guess the closest thing you can have is a thread, basically.
Right.
Threads, if you start a conversation within a thread, only people within the thread will receive notifications on it. So that can be a good option if you want to have kind of a sub conversation within the space.
Yes. And also I would just add another detail to that. When a thread is created and you want to get notifications on there, you have to follow it. Either if you create it
or comment on it.
Yeah, or comment on it, you automatically follow it. But if you are just reading and you want to read that, follow that thread, then you will have to actually enable follow for that thread to get notifications on it.
Makes sense. Okay. And just to allow for time, this will be our last question. And I will just speak for the group and saying that there are a lot of comments here as well that may not necessarily be questions, but we are receiving all of these and we'll be considering them. So thank you. Are there options for polls or resharing a post? I think the resharing may also relate to that, link to a specific post that we talked about earlier, but anything to elaborate on those two features?
So I would just say polls is part of that whole creation, meaning that creation of spaces as messages to make it more, to allow you to give you more voice. We call it just like supporting creation voice in spaces. So that's part of that that's being evaluated. Can't comment whether or not that's coming anytime soon. In terms of resharing a post, it depends on what you mean by that. Linking is one of them. There are other ideas that we received around, like, can you, reply that thread into another message and stuff like that. These are all things that we are also actively evaluating. That's part of the whole creation of a message. So I put that in another bucket that we are constantly trying to improve on, but cannot comment whether or not what the timeline is for this.
Okay, and it looks like we'll take this as the last one because it looks like there was some clarification around the adding external users. So this was referring to, can you add external users after you've already created a space?
I think the concern here is really something that's up to your workspace administrator and domain. If your domain does not allow external users, then they wouldn't be able to be added. So if your domain has made the decision to allow external users, then they can be added. The security risk is really something that is out a control outside of chat.
Got it. and is allowing to change an internal only space to an external space coming soon.
Yeah, again, this is probably restricted in your workspace settings. Let me look at that.
Okay. Sounds good. We are at the hour, so just wanted to say thank you again, everyone, for joining and sticking with it for the hour, and appreciate all of your questions and your comments. So we will be sharing this information in a recap post in the Workspace community. Please continue to ask your questions there as well, and we'll do our best to consolidate and provide responses. Thank you so much, Jackson, Chelsea, and Christina, for joining and sharing this information. We really appreciate it. Any final thoughts from you before we close out today?
Really appreciate everybody for going on this journey with us. We're looking forward to seeing what all of you can do in Spaces and to the next generation of collaboration.
Yeah, and for me, again, just echoing that, thank you for all the comments. I am reading through this. It is funny that I am probably spilling some of the beans where users are saying it's not supported today, and I mentioned should be. So you can take that with a grain of salt. But I will continue to read these comments, and on the recap, we'll try to answer as many more questions as possible. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll be in touch. Thanks, everyone, and we hope to see you next time, and we'll stay in touch in the community. All right, appreciate it.